Hello, my friends. My name is Jack Ducard, and this is Sentinel Circle. Thank you for being here today. We're going to go ahead and cut right into the... well, we got a more of a topic rather than just a singular article. And let me kind of go over where I'm coming from here on this one. So the whole thing with the Buffalo school system, and if you haven't seen my video on it, I would strongly recommend it. There are other good videos on it. Or if you want to go straight to the source, you can go to the Unsubscribed podcast and see what's going on there. In fact, they just released an update as of the 24th, which is the day of recording. I have not watched that update yet, and as soon as I'm done recording, I am going to listen to that while I do other things, and hopefully it'll be very interesting. But it brought up a very important thing for me. And I'm not going to make this too much about myself, but for those who don't know, and those who haven't watched the update, or not the update, the intro video to the channel, which again, I'd strongly recommend you do so. But my life was impacted not by me being abused as a child, but my fiance was abused as a child by her now current husband when he was a police officer and she was a student in the school system. And I do firmly believe that relationship, or that type of relationship, does have extreme consequences on how to handle relationships and such down the road. But what we don't really talk about as a society, and we're starting to talk about it now, it's been kind of on the increase, but I've noticed specifically within the last 10 years, and I would say that's kind of when I awoke, was, roughly, it's 2025, about 15 years ago is when I started having my true awakening. I've noticed a greater increase in women abusing young boys in their classrooms. So that's kind of what we're going to discuss today, is the consequences of that, as well as what may be causing this. Now, I know that typically speaking, males who abuse students in the classroom, they tend to be already have abusive tendencies, and they're trying to enact those abusive tendencies with students. And we have covered stories like that before, like the Oregon Youth Authority doctor who abused youth prisoners in the system, and he did it for years, and the effects that caused. Well, again, we're going to go to, what happens when a woman abuses a male student specifically, and what may cause that, as well as the consequences of that, because there are consequences. And I know a lot of the older men who watch my channel are probably going to say, well, so what? Or, where were these women when I was young? Well, I get that. Okay, I'm sure that there are individuals who have that fantasy, but we're supposed to be a channel of understanding, and some of the guys who have gone through that would highly disagree with how you may see the situation. So the first, and really the main article that we're going to talk about here is from the Columbus Dispatch. So this is from Columbus, Ohio specifically. But this article, probably in a nutshell, really goes over what I'm trying to talk about here. So it's titled "More Female Teachers Caught Having Relations," and I'm going to try my best to not say naughty words, even though this is going to be pretty heavy in that. So caught having intercourse with students, experts say. And it's by Amanda Garrett, Akron Beacon Journal, Gatehouse Media, Ohio. I'm not sure if they just contributed in some way, or if Miss Amanda works with both of them. Anyway, so it says the 17-year-old was suiting up for track practice in February 2018 when his gym teacher at Catton McKinley High School reached out to him on Snapchat. Now, I'm not going to really go into, what the technologies are. There's many videos that can do that, but, Snapchat has been kind of a hotbed of this kind of behavior. Anyways, the teacher, Tiffany Eckert, asked the boy to come to her nearby office. When he got there, Eckert locked the door, flipped off the lights, and began pulling down his pants, the boy later told police. Now, you got to remember, this kid's 17 years old. I don't know what the age of consent is in Ohio. But I do know that in many states, there is an exception to the age of consent, and typically a teacher or an adult in a position of authority having relations with, in this case, a student, even if if they were both of consent, it's still a crime simply because the teacher is in charge of those minors. Same thing if the kid was 18 years old, it'd be the same situation. That's my understanding of it. I could be wrong. Like when I was going through my legal issues, I had to become, quote unquote, a jailhouse lawyer. So that way I could understand what was going on with my case and the things that I've learned from that, and running for public office in my town really kind of helped me understand how the system works in that regard. I'm not saying that I'm an expert in it, but I know enough to be dangerous, basically. The boy didn't try to stop. I just pronounced this too. Elker? Yeah. It may not be Elker. It may be something else. A 36-year-old married mother of 4 who taught the boys swim class the previous semester. That's sad. She's married and has 4 children of her own, and she's basically my age. That's even worse. Now she's on the registry. That's fantastic. But as the two fell to the floor and started having intercourse, the teen was troubled. The whole entire time, I knew it was wrong, so I had to stop, the boy later told police. Now, okay, it's possible he really did think that it was wrong. It's possible he's trying to say these things so that way he's not in trouble himself. I know that at that age, it may seem like he's probably, he thinks he's probably looking at consequences, even though he's the victim. I don't know what's going on through his head. Okay. What I do know is, in a situation like that, where it's unexpected, it's very confusing. You don't know what's going on. And then all of a sudden you're talking with law enforcement, it puts a lot of pressure on it. So, I'm not going to make any judgments of this kid, okay? I'm sure if he did feel remorse, he probably does, and I sympathize with that. And if, he doesn't, well, that's okay too, okay? We're not going to go into that. Anyways, Elker also had relations with 2 other teenage boys during the winter months of 2018 before she got caught. So 3 victims involved, from what it sounds like. She is one of at least 5 female teachers, counselors, or school administrators in northeastern Ohio schools, city, suburban, and rural, to face charges of having intercourse or contact with students during the past 2 years. Most recently, Windham School Superintendent Laura Amaro, 35, was indicted in April on 6 felonies involving intercourse with students and intimidation of crime witnesses. You see, that's kind of where it goes, is once you cross that line, other crimes are typically involved as well. And the fact that she's a superintendent is rather bad as well. Amaro, who has pled not guilty, is scheduled to stand trial June 18th. Okay, so real fast. I don't know why the media does this, and it really bothers me when they do this, but they make it seem like pleading not guilty is like the worst thing in the world, okay? Typically speaking, in your first your first court appearance, you're always going to plead not guilty because you haven't even talked to your attorney yet. You have to be indicted within a reasonable time frame first, and that's one of our constitutional. I'm going to backtrack on that. I think it is. I could be wrong on that. It's speedy and public trial, but it's technically not a trial. It's an appearance in court. Anyways, again, I'm not going to go into that too much. I know enough to be dangerous, but I do know that the first appearance, when they set your bail, you always plead not guilty. It's because your attorney needs time to go over the documents. So, and they make it seem like, well, he's got no remorse, whatever, and that's not the case. Okay, so don't ever listen to an article say, well, he pled not guilty. So, because it makes it seem worse than it actually is. It's procedural versus, oh, he really thinks he did nothing wrong. Okay. Anyways, some have downplayed or even laughed off the seriousness of female educators having intercourse with teenage students, playing it into the trope of hormone-driven boys lusting after the woman in front of the class. And yes, okay, that's great, but it's still a crime, okay? It still is a crime, and don't sit there and tell me that it's just boy students doing it to the women teacher. Female students do the same exact thing to male instructors as well, okay? So don't freaking lie to me and sit there and say that it's only one direction. It's both directions. I hate that. I hate that they're like, well, the boys are fantasizing. No, it's not just the boys, okay? And I know that for a fact. All right, let's continue. But many prosecutors and people who work with the abuse say female teachers having intercourse with male students are doing just as much harm as their male counterparts who are preying on girls. And it doesn't have to be like male on female or female on male. There have been instances of like, there's the one teacher that I can think of where he made his students drink his own ejaculation. And he made them do it for both female students and male students. So these things just, people are sick. Let me just put it that way. People are just disgusting. They're sick. And quite frankly, they need to all just be like, dealt with. Anyways, so nationwide, about 10% of all students experience deviant misconduct by a school employee, sometimes between kindergarten and the time they graduate from high school. So 1 in 10 children out there are being abused in some capacity by a teacher at some point of their schooling career. 1 in 10 children. How that is just awful. That is, I just, we shouldn't have hurt children. And half the time these things go unreported. So I wouldn't be surprised that number is actually higher. It doesn't say if this is from reports or if this is like an estimate or if this is like including reported. And I don't know what the number is. 10%. That to me, it's shockingly high, but at the same time, it seems low. Because it just seems like I'm seeing article after article after article nationwide about teachers abusing students in some capacity, administrators abusing kids in some capacity. And as we've seen with Buffalo schools, they're not reporting it, or they're reporting it in a way that it's not getting followed up by the SVU. Again, thank you, Rich High, for doing what you're doing. But this is a nationwide problem. This is indeed a nationwide problem, and the bigger problem is half the time it's not even reported. And I know for a fact that a lot of times it's just not reported. It gets swept under the rug. The student reports it to the teacher goes to the higher up, and the higher up says, shut up, don't say a dang word about it, right? Because again, they're worried about God knows what, money or bad press or whatever. Anyways, male abusers outnumber female, the study says. And I will say that That is an obvious thing. Males do abuse students at higher rates compared to women, but there's a reason why I'm doing this specific article. But the number of reports of female educators charged with SA of students is rising. Not necessarily because there are more women abusing children, but because they're getting caught. And that's the key here. I really think that women abusing students is actually downplayed and not reported as much. And a part of this video is to break that stigma. Excuse me, I got the coffee hiccups here. In Stark County, Elker pled guilty last year to 3 felony counts of battery. Prosecutors asked the judge to sentence her to 4 years in prison, but the judge thought Elker, who surrendered her teaching license and will forever have to register with authorities as a SA, or SO, I should say, has largely suffered enough. And no, she hasn't. She needs to face the inside of a jail cell. You know, she needs to face a couple years in prison, in my view. You know, yeah, she's going to be on the offenders list for God knows how long, if not for life. Hopefully it's for life. She is an SO. Okay. And then surrendering her teacher's license. Well, what a lot of people fail to recognize is that teachers have to go to college. So basically her college degree is now worthless. She can't work around kids, and she's going to have that on her record for life. Yeah, it has directly impacted her, but like, if a male teacher did the exact same thing to female teachers, or female students, I should say, he'd be upstate for 10 years plus. You know, he'd have the book thrown at him. And again, this is what I have an issue with, is I really feel that not only did the prosecutor was kind of lenient with her, but the judge was even more lenient with her. You know, again, I wasn't in the courtroom. I didn't watch the trial. She pled guilty, so there was no trial. But I don't know the circumstances, but we'll continue on. The judge sentenced her to 30 days in jail and another 30 days in what Stark County calls half jail. Sort of day detention room for adults. God. All right, whatever. An attorney who represented Elker did not respond to a reporter's call, and Elker could not be reached, of course. This story of Elker, the boy she had intercourse with, and the judge meted out, is based on hundreds of pages of police and court records, along with interviews with the leader of the Crisis Center for Summit and Mendia. Oh God, Mendia. Okay, Mendia. I'm just going to pronounce it Mendia. I'm wrong. Whatever. Counties, and a psychologist and author whose career is focused on predators. Texts lead to more. The 18-year-old McKinley High School student was immediately suspicious when a text popped up on his mobile phone from Elker, the woman who taught his... Jesus Christ. Let me try this again. I'm sorry. I'm going a little too fast here. The 18-year-old McKinley High School student was immediately suspicious when a text popped up on his mobile phone from Elker, the woman who taught his sports psychology class. It was around February 2018, and Elker wished the boy luck before his sporting events. Okay, so let's take a second here. Okay, I understand that, like, I didn't grow up with smartphones. Smartphones hit in 2007 when I was about ready to graduate high school. 2007, 2008, right? Texts were there, but like the school had a very strict, my school had a very strict, you do not contact students, and students do not contact teachers through text unless there's like a prior relationship, like, you know, family or whatever. Okay. But in general, you just don't do it. And the teachers would be disciplined over that. Now, being older and knowing how the school system works, I'm skeptical of the whole teachers would be punished thing. But I digress. It was in the manual. I don't know if, sorry about that. I don't know if anybody else who's, in their 30s or whatever remember, but I had to buy like a school planner, and it had the code of conduct inside the school planner, and I had to buy it every single year. And it basically outlined certain rules and regulations that students and teachers had to abide by. But again, we were told, no, you will not talk to these kids via text or via social media outside the classroom. And in fact, MySpace and Facebook were kind of like, were the things, obviously. MySpace first, and teachers didn't have MySpace. They had Facebooks, though. And I know that some of the students would connect through the teachers after they graduated on Facebook, but not before. Again, there was rules like about that. So obviously, this, unless that policy just doesn't exist anymore, this is not good already. But we'll just we'll continue on here. It was around February 2018, and Elker wished the boy luck before his sporting event. I just found it weird. Like, she just found me on Facebook Messenger and just texted me when she could have told me in class. The boy later told police. And that's, again, he's right. She could have said it earlier, but there's a reason for this. It's there's a specific term when it comes to like predator prey situations where it's like you make the first contact. That's kind of like you're in, you kind of feel the waters. If you, like in this case, you say good luck and he doesn't report it, well, that's kind of you're in. Now you're in the situation, okay? She's testing the waters to make sure everything's okay. Things escalated around Valentine's Day when Elker asked the boy if he was dating anyone, and that's highly inappropriate of a teacher. No, he told her. He and his girlfriend had broken up. Through a private message on social media, Elker told the boy she wants to be his Valentine and that he could have whatever he wants, the boy told police. That is just... Okay, so I want everybody here to play a game with me, okay? I want you to swap the gender of the teacher and the student. I want you to imagine a male teacher telling a female student these things. I want you to think about that. And I want you to really just ingrain yourself with that. And ask yourself, is that okay? If it's definitely not okay, if you hear sirens in the background of that situation, then you should hear sirens in the background of this situation here. And if in your mind you don't hear sirens in this situation, but if you swap the genders, you hear sirens in that situation, you really need to recalibrate your understanding of life, my friend. Because I tell you what, if this happened with a male teacher and a female student, the town would be up in arms demanding answers right now. Okay? But I can already tell you, just based on how this article is being written, that it's like, okay, whatever, that's cool. It just seems like, yeah, it happened, but whatever. It doesn't, I'm not feeling the impact I should be feeling, and that bothers me. Okay, the boy was stunned. And, that's when I took a step back and, whoa, what? The boy said. And I said, I don't want anything. Elker, however, persisted. That's very not good. She asked the boy for his Snapchat account. That's wrong. Let's see how many wrongs there are at the end of this. I'm already counting about 4. The boy said he didn't give it to her at first, but relented after Elker asked the second time. Again, if a man was doing this, Okay, take this teacher-student dynamic. If a man was pestering a woman for her Snapchat, he would be labeled abusive. He'd be labeled a creep. He'd be thrown all these labels. But she's doing it to a student. I mean, granted, the kid's 18, which I think that we're talking about two different boys because the first boy was 17. But, like, no, this is harassment. I hate this. I really, I hate how society just lightly slaps the female teacher over this, whereas the male teacher would be sent upstate 10 years. Elker started sending him pictures. Nothing racy at first, but then on a Sunday, she sent the boy a picture of herself and said she was on her way to church. Of course. The woman's going to church. I wonder why. The picture, a selfie, showed a side view of Elker in her undergarments, a reflection in a bedroom mirror. The boy said, "No, that wasn't an accident. She knew exactly what she was doing." Okay, it was probably one of those things where like the camera's showing the face, but in the background there's a mirror and you can see everything. No, she knew exactly what she was doing. You know, and again, that's testing the waters. You know, and that's why predators want the Snapchat, because the pictures disappear after so many seconds, and of course you can see if someone screenshots it. I'm like, this is crazy. The boy told police. Finally, on the day of McKinley High's parent-teacher conferences, the boy and Elker agreed over social media to have intercourse. And again, you know, it's obvious that the boy kind of... I'm gonna hold off on my statement here because I kind of read ahead and I see where this is going. So let me hold off. Elker told him she would pick him up after she wrapped up with meetings with parents. The boy, though he had agreed, said he wasn't sure he would have followed through. And it sounds like the kid's being pressured into this. It sounds like he doesn't want this, but he's getting highly pressured into it, which, yeah, that's not good. Yeah, he was there waiting for Elker in an alley when she pulled up in her black Ford SUV. Okay, I want you guys to remember, this woman's married and has 4 kids. Don't forget that part. You know, it should be emphasized, like almost every paragraph, that she is married at this time with 4 children. It was dark and the boy suggested they drive to nearby Harmont Park with skateboarding ramps and ball fields. She parked next to a path and she and her student got in the back seat and had intercourse. Afterward, as Elker drove the team home, he secretly turned on his phone, hoping to capture audio proof of what had just happened. So the kid... I don't want to think bad thoughts about this kid. It's obvious he was just a victim here, but I'm wondering if maybe he is trying to get blackmail on this woman at this point, which kind of a little late to the party on that one. You should have had it like recording beforehand. But again, I don't want to think bad thoughts about this, but I'm wondering if that's what's going on, if he's trying to blackmail her at this point. It would be a very interesting twist to this already awful story. During the drive, Elker and the boy talked about how good the intercourse was, the boy told police, and Elker told him that since he was 18, it doesn't make it that No, of course not. See, it's funny. She's trying to justify it. It doesn't matter that she's a teacher and he's a student. He's her student. She's still trying to justify it, and that's not okay. But she warned she could still get in trouble if he said anything because she was his teacher. Okay, so yes, there are policies in place. So I kind of figured that's what the case was. God, Lord, why am I always itchy when I do this? Types of abusers. Anna Salter, a psychologist and author who has spent decades interviewing, studying, and writing about predators, said there are generally 3 types of women who SA children. Okay, well, now we're into the interesting part of the article. This is the part I really wanted to read here. The first target, preschool children. Oh, my God. I forgot about that. Often their own, and the SA, the abuse, is often tangled up with sadistic. Oh, God. Okay. These women rarely get caught because the level of violence is so severe, and the children are afraid to talk, Salter said. So they target their own children, and the abuse is tangled up with sadistic violence. Yeah, I could see that. The second group of female SAs are coerced into relations by their adult male partners. And I have seen cases of that too. In fact, I think the Subway guy, Jared, he was involved in a situation like that where the woman was pretending to enjoy child SA just to get Jared on record. And the whole Jared story, if you ever get the chance to really dig into it, it was awful. I feel so horrible for the radio host in that situation. She had to endure that for years. And it was simply because, like, she wanted to do the right thing. Okay, I don't mean to tangent off here, but I have to say this. The woman who got Jared wanted to do the right thing. The FBI actually threatened to arrest her and charge her for secretly recording the phone calls between the two of them. And then said that if she did not continue to get evidence against Jared, she would be in serious legal trouble. Like, can you imagine that? You know, like, she's trying to do the right thing, and they threaten her with destroying her life and arresting her. And people wonder why nobody's willing to help anymore. When you got people like her getting in trouble, when you got people like Daniel Penny being forced to face murder charges, like, it's no wonder nobody's willing to lift a finger to help someone in need these days. You know, hell, you make sandwiches for the freaking homeless, and the state will come in and throw them in trash cans and bleach them all and arrest you because you don't have the proper permits. Like, how sick have we gotten at this point? How sick of a society have we gotten where we're more concerned about arresting someone for recording a private conversation versus dealing with a child abuser? God, it infuriates me. It infuriates me, and like I said, the more I hear these stories, the older I get, the more cynical I get. And I wonder, you know, as a kid, I always wondered why my dad was so cynical, and now I get it. I fully understand it, why my dad is just super cynical about life. You know? Like, I know back in the day, people like Jared, that he would just been taken out into the back and dealt with. You know, but now you got the person who's trying to do the right thing, getting threatened to be treated like a criminal. You know? And then everybody just kind of stands aside while the store is being robbed and looted and burnt, you know? And then, like, just society breaks down because people want to do the right thing, but they're hamstrung even more so than the criminals. You know? But we can't have vigilante justice. Can't do that. You know? That's where it's going to go at some point, is we're going to have people like the Guardian Angels come back in New York. In fact, I think actually they are back before the National Guard showed up on the subway. But I think that's what's going to happen is there's just going to be mass vigilante justice because at this point, the people who are taxing us are not doing the right thing. We've seen that again with Buffalo school system and Rich High. Again, watch that video, Buffalo school system and Rich High on my channel or find another place to watch it and see what's going on. Those are the people who are being paid to do the right thing and they're not doing the right thing. And yet we as commoners can't force them to do the right thing for some ungodly reason. Okay. Rant over because I'm getting upset now. Okay. And the third and largest group of female abusers includes many teachers, coaches, school employees who get caught. They think they love... Oh, God. They think... Oh, God. They think they love the children. Oh, God, I could barely say that. Ugh. They think they love the children. Oh. That's a delusion right there, my friends. A significant delusion. Often the women in this group of abusers are in their mid-30s, married, and have children. Yeah. That's very interesting. Mid-30s, married, and have children. That fit that one woman to a T. The teachers are often popular, both with other teachers and students. Salter warns that people tend to confuse the teacher's likability with trustworthiness. And yes, that I don't know what that is, but people... And it's not just teachers, but it's also just people in general. Like we confuse their likability with trustworthiness. Like I attribute it to the whole used car salesman. If they weren't used car salesmen, if they were doing something else, they would blend in very well. They get caught more often than other sex offenders, Salter said, because their victims are usually teens who have autonomy. And this is, again, true. In my case, I moved into my school when I met my ex, and I was there like 1 year, but she had been with the school district from birth to graduation, basically. And I didn't know it at the time, but later on I found out that like it was kind of an open secret that the two of them were kind of like my ex and her cop husband, now former cop boyfriend. They were together for years. Like it was just an open secret. The teachers knew, the students knew. Nobody said a freaking word because, of course, he's a cop. Meanwhile, the department, they kept saying, "Oh, well, she's his daughter." So even they knew, but I think that they just didn't realize what was going on, or they were just so protective of him that they didn't want to go any deeper. And that was the worst part about it was the police officers that knew the two of them would sit there and say, well, she's his daughter. And I'm sure it was a huge shock when the two of them got married. I say that, and then like the instant thought was, no, they weren't shocked. They knew. They all knew. They were lying to me. The whole town was shocked because, like I said, the one cop was the dare officer, and every kid knew the cop. They all knew him. They all loved him, except me. I did not like him one bit. But then again, like I said, I was only there for senior year, so. What do I know? Carol Shakeshaft, a professor of educational leadership at Virginia Commonwealth University, called these women opportunistic abusers. And again, this isn't the first time I've heard this term, opportunistic abusers. Most men fall into that category where they abuse at the first opportunity, whereas women, it's not covered in this article. This is more against teachers, but women tend to abuse people or children when they're deviants. They tend to abuse children that they're familiar with, that they know, whereas the men tend to find the strangers. You know, they're trying to find someone that they're not connected with, and that's how that's why men tend to be more caught than women. You know, it's something to do with safety versus strange or what. I don't know. I'm not an abuser. I don't know what an abuser thinks. These teachers spend a lot of time around groups of students, talking with them and going to the same places they do and trying to blend in. Shakeshaft wrote in a paper about the warning signs of educator deviant misconduct. Excuse me. Often, these teachers want to be seen as cool or hip, and their conversations about or with students are often inappropriately personal. And so that kind of leads to another discussion. We won't have it here in depth. We'll probably do another video on it. But for some reason, teachers, specifically at high school, they form cliques as well. You know, there have been instances, and I read an article years ago, I wonder if it's still out there, where you had like, they were talking about teachers in cliques, and like you had like popular teachers, and they were always like treated like superstars and popular and all that stuff, and then you had like the nerdy teachers and all that stuff. It was very odd. And that article made me kind of realize, because I saw it in college too. It wasn't as bad in college, because everyone said, you know, college, it's kind of like a fresh start and all that stuff. And it really wasn't. It was kind of an extension of high school. And the other thing too that I've noticed is like even the workplace is kind of the extension of high school. It really depends on what work you do. Like my job is we only have one woman on our team, and it's obvious that she just wants to be treated as an equal, which that's fine. I'll treat her as an equal all day long. But it's mostly men, and the men are just very helpful to each other. They're not trying to be popular or anything. They just want to do their job, go home. You know, that's it. Whereas it seems like other jobs, see, when I worked for the school district, it was kind of like that, where, you know, there were cliques, there was like the cool kids table and all that stuff. Whereas, like I said, the jobs in my current field, they were not like that. Now, granted, I worked by myself the entire time, but even like talking with the guys, they were all eager to help everybody else. But I always attributed it to, because we're all working alone, we don't really talk to each other all that much. Now, I still have my friend from my previous job. We talk every day. And it's funny. I was in the industry less than him, and we still ask each other questions. Like, he'll ask questions of me because I have a certain skill set that he lacks, and I'll ask questions from him because there are certain things that I lack as well. And we just bounce ideas off all day long and stuff like that. It's really nice. He's probably the only person I really talked to from my previous job. A really good guy. But yeah, for some reason, the dichotomy extends from the in high school to the teachers as well. So I would imagine being a high school principal is kind of just like a nightmare, because you're basically the teacher again, except you're dealing with other adults. Oh God. A female teacher with a weak self-image might be attracted to a male student in her class and feel excited when she talks with him, she wrote. She starts to think that pursuing him is acceptable because he's a teenager. And again, it's not. And I know for a fact that teachers, when they go through training, they are sat down with the PowerPoint and that says, you date a student, you're wrong. Here's the crime. They go over it all the time, and yet they still justify it in their heads. It's astounding what the human mind does, especially the woman mind. But that's a conversation for another day. Social and cultural norms have taught teen boys that they're supposed to feel honored and engage in intercourse, she wrote, even if some might feel repelled. And again, granted, this woman's in her 30s, okay? But let me ask someone, would you be okay if it was a 60-year-old woman, 70-year-old woman? I highly doubt that, because there have been cases where, teachers like that, they've been arrested too. It doesn't matter the age, it's still a crime. And we need to, treat it like a crime rather than, one of the articles in your dirty magazines. Let's not treat it like that. Okay. The other thing too is, if you are younger and you're watching my video, A, thank you for watching, and B, if you don't want to engage in that activity, you are under no obligation to do so. Okay? Do not listen to society saying that you have to engage in that because it's cool or whatever. Don't do it. If it makes you uncomfortable, don't do it. Okay? Late night meetings. Another 17-year-old boy picked up the gym teacher's Snapchat information at a McKinley High School basketball game on a Friday night in the winter of 2018. When the boy got home, he sent Elker a snap, lingo for a message sent over the social media network Snapchat, asking her what's up. The boy wasn't Elker's student, but he knew she was a teacher at the school. In the mornings, Elker often sent him snaps asking him how he was doing. Sometimes she sent pictures of her face, but nothing questionable, the boy later told police. About 2 weeks later, or about 2 weeks into their social media relationship, the boy texted Elker after another McKinley basketball. Oh God, hang on. Let me try that again. I seized up there. About 2 weeks into their social media relationship, the boy texted Elker after another McKinley basketball game and told Elker he was hungry. Elker picked up food from Raising Cane's Chicken Fingers and headed to his house. What? I'm sorry. What? This kid got freaking chicken fingers and intercourse. I shouldn't make light of the situation, but that's messed up, man. Like, first you got the free candy van, now you got the free chicken finger SUV. Oh Lord. She parked in the cul-de-sac and the boy came out and got in her SUV. There was no kissing, no foreplay. They had intercourse under the windows of his home. And then the boy went inside, and Elker, who lived in Portage County, drove to her sister's home in New Franklin. So she's just like, she just wants it. She's not into the lead up. That's good to know. A couple hours later, the boy sent Elker a social media message asking her to come back for more. Okay, so this kid obviously is into it, which that's not okay, but at the same time, yeah, it really is not okay. There's no but. It's not okay. About 2 or 3 a.m., the teacher returned to the student. And again, I want you guys to picture the inverse of this. Would you be okay with a man coming over to have relations with the young girl while the parents are at home at 2 a.m. Would any of you be okay? Because I sure as heck would not. So that doesn't make this okay either. It's still a crime. No, I don't care what anybody says. This is a crime that's being committed. This is actually 2 crimes being committed in the same day. And then this is where it starts getting really, really messed up. About 2 or 3 a.m., the teacher returned to the student, this time with the boy's mom somewhere in the home. The boy and Elker slipped into his basement laundry room and had intercourse again. In the days that followed, the teacher and the boy continued talking on Snapchat. At some point, the boy sent Elker a snap telling her that he needed $180 for medication because she gave him an STD. Yes, you read that right. I read that right. She gave him an STD, therefore he needed medication. Elker later told police she was unaware that she had an STD if she did, but the boy said Elker paid him $180. It's disgusting. Absolutely disgusting and disgraceful what this teacher did. Vulnerable males. People generally don't think of women as predators, said Sandy Parker, director of the Crisis Center of Summit and Medina counties. It's really kind of ingrained for a very long time, Parker said. I think women are thought of more as nurturers and caretakers. And yes, this is a sad reality of our biology. And that, she and others said, can leave boys and men vulnerable. Male victims, children, or adults may be less likely to report intercourse crimes. And even when they do, sometimes the justice system doesn't take the crime as seriously. As we've seen, she only got 30 days in jail and 30 days, half jail, whatever that means. But she's on the registry as well, when the prosecutor asked for 4 years. When researchers often offer people vignettes describing a crime, a victim, and an offender, people constantly say a male offender should go to prison and for a longer time than female offenders in the precise same vignette, Salter said, which I've seen that. For some reason, there's this societal belief that the woman should go away for less time, and I don't agree with that at all. We underestimate female sex offenders, she said. It's the old mythology. Boy, did he get lucky, still rules. I disagree. But maybe I am an extreme minority on this. And if that's the case, well, downvote away. I take your downvotes. Give me negative comments. I'll take your negative comments and I'll read them aloud. But it needs to be addressed, and we need to change the thinking on this. Unexpected posts. At the beginning of the 2017-2018 school year, a 17-year-old boy in Elker's swimming class posted on Snapchat that he wanted to do streaks. Streaks involve friends snapping photos to each other on Snapchat once a day, every day, for an extended period of time. The youngins, I swear to God. Then she had slid up on the Snapchat and said she wanted to do one. The boy told police, so I just said, okay. Sometimes Elker sent the boy pictures showing her sitting in the living room. Other times she was in her SUV. Nothing provocative. The boy said he sent her similar pictures in return until things started to change in January 2018. The boy was sending out pictures as part of his snap streak and sent Elker a picture of his bedroom dresser, which is made of wood. Elker, he said, responded by saying she wanted another kind of wood, slang for an erection. The boy didn't get it. If that's the case, the boy's a little more innocent than I thought he was. Because I knew what that term was when, I was very young. But maybe it's just a generational thing. Maybe we're just like out of touch with the youth today. Who knows? I sent back question marks because I didn't know what she was talking about. The boy told police. Once she helped him understand, the boy said he stopped messaging her and they didn't talk about it. So this one, the 17-year-old, the kid from the initial story, really wanted nothing to do with this. So this crosses a line, an even darker line than the other one did. Once she helped him understand, or I already read that. A couple days later, the boy started sending random snap streaks again, including to Elker. It went on like this for months. Sometimes the boy would sit in Elker's office and she would ask him about his grades or tell him about her husband and kids, which shouldn't be doing that, but okay. Then one weekday afternoon, Elker snapped him and asked him what he was doing. When he told her he was getting ready for track practice, she snapped him to come to her office. The boy told police there was no hint that anything nothing or anything was about to happen that was I'm just going to say it sexual in nature. There we go. Again, sorry, but no other words came to mind, and I just want to get that out there. When he got to Elker's office, there was no conversation. She had just locked the door and turned off the lights. Like, again, change the gender here, and this goes to a serious felony. I don't mean to laugh, but like, I can imagine. I can imagine what would happen if this was a female student and a male teacher. You know, like there was no lead up to this. No lead up. She tested the waters and it freaked him out. And she goes from testing the waters to immediately, and I'm going to read the next sentence and you'll understand. I was in shock at first and I didn't know what was going on, the boy said. And then she started pulling my pants down and I wanted to stop. I couldn't think at the time. That is a serious grape. Let's be honest here. This is a grape, not the R word, grape, the fruit. I mean, that is horrifying what it just happened here. They never talked about what happened afterwards, he said. And he didn't want to tell anyone until kids at school started talking about a video going around that proved Elker had intercourse with another boy. The secret video the boy who had intercourse with Elker at the park made as Elker drove him home. So really, that video is what exposed her. Oh dear. A former girlfriend of the boy who had intercourse with Elker in the park discovered the video on his phone and shared it. Oh dear. Oh me, oh my. So it wasn't even he that released it. It was the ex-girlfriend. Oh my. Nothing is so vengeful as a woman scorned. As gossip spread, someone from McKinley staff pulled aside the boy who had intercourse with Elker in her office. Soon he was talking to police, and so was his teacher. So basically, as you can see, the boy wanted nothing to do with it. She locked the door, turned out the light, pulled his pants down. Like, that, again, swap the genders. If that's what helps you realize how heinous that is, swap the genders. Imagine if a male teacher did that to a female. Or, hell, pick any gender you want. Pick any gender you want. A male teacher doing that to a male student. I know that's like even harder to conceive, but, you know, work with me on this one. You know, a they, them doing that to another they, them, if that's what you want to do. You know, but either way, pick a gender and pick a gender of the student and, like, let your imagination run wild on that. You know, and again, that is horrifying. You know, you're in a dark room with a teacher that just pulled your pants down and the door's locked. If that isn't a crime, which obviously it is, but if that doesn't like upset people, then I don't know what will. Let me put it that way. Lenient sentence. During an interview with Canton Police Detective in March 2018, Elker said she had been married about a dozen years, but she and her husband had grown up. Okay, so this is the other part that really drives me nuts. She's going to sit there and say that her husband is what drove her to commit a crime. Not like there are other, adult dating websites like Adam and Eve or whatever out there. Okay? You have many options out there. But no, you, Miss Elker, you chose to defile young boys. Okay? Your husband did not make that choice for you. You made that choice. There were other options. Granted, I don't like the whole cheating thing, but if you absolutely had to cheat, there are other options out there rather than preying on your students, ma'am. You freaking disgust me. And I really wish that you were in jail. I really wish you were sent upstate to prison. Elker wasn't happy and felt particularly bad about herself. So bad she was seeing a counselor, she told police. Again, with the sad sob story. I have poor body image. I have poor self-esteem, so I got to go diddle some children. No, there are other places. There are other times. There are more appropriate and legal avenues for that. I hate that she's trying to portray herself as a victim. She victimized 3 children. Now, granted, one seemed to have wanted it, but she still victimized 3 children. And it doesn't matter if that one wanted it or not. He was still a student at her school where she taught at. It's still a crime. When detectives asked Elker when she started reaching out to the children in McKinley High School, she suddenly seemed defiant and turned the questions around. I would say most of them reached out to me. Shut up! No, you reached out to them, ma'am. Don't freaking lie. Again, she... No. I need water now because I'm out of coffee. And we went through a whole video. I went through all my coffee. Now I'm at water. Cool. Adding the students often approached her for intercourse, contradicting what 2 of the 3 boys... Look, ma'am, and again, for anybody, first off, everybody, turn the roles around. How would you feel if a man said this to a woman or said this about a woman? And 2 is, you're still the adult in the situation, ma'am. You still have an obligation to say no, ma'am, if that's the truth, which you're not telling the truth. Regardless, under Ohio law, a school teacher having intercourse with a student violates the law. Thank you. So yes, it is illegal in Ohio. Weeks later, a Stark County grand jury indicted Elker on 3 counts of battery, felonies that could yield 5 years in prison. Elker pled guilty. Prosecutors filed paperwork asking Stark County Common Pleas Judge John Hass to put Elker in prison for 48 months, 12 months for each time she had intercourse with a student. So 4 times. Okay, that makes sense. Elker was grooming students, a process that leads to intercourse, prosecutors said in court papers. In a day when strict security measures are put in place in order to keep dangerous people from entering schools, the last thing the parents should have to fear are that the teachers inside could be taken advantage of those same protected individuals. Prosecutor said. I agree. Prosecutors told the judge in court papers that they had always been concerned that the sentencing in this case would be considerably different because Elker is a female teacher with male student victims, and that there would be a level of sympathy given to Elker which would not have been given if the genders of the party were... So even the prosecutors admit that there is a bias there. Even the prosecutors admit that, and they're trying to treat this as fairly as possible. I applaud the prosecutors in this. It's not often that you hear me praising prosecutors, but in this case, I firmly agree. On June 19, 2018, Elker appeared before Judge Haas to learn her fate. The mother of one of the boys who had intercourse with Elker told the judge her son was a good boy who didn't get into trouble. Okay, yeah, whatever. You, the mother said, addressing Elker, were supposed to be looking out for my son, but you were only looking out for yourself. Yes. The judge said Elker was sorry for what happened, and it was very unlikely she'd target teenage boys again. No, she will. Once you start, you can't stop. He pointed out Elker had already lost her teaching license, respect for herself, and respect for others. Or respect of others. It doesn't matter, sir. I'm not going to send you to prison, he told Elker. It would serve no real purpose in this case. The judge decided on a 30-day jail sentence along with a slew of requirements, including Elker registering as an S offender, completing probation and seeking counseling, which standard. That's all standard. Elker is still married and now working at a car dealership in Kent, is also forbidden from snapping with anyone under the age of 18. That was a very awful ending to a very awful article. Let's go into final thoughts in your comments, and we'll finish the discussion there. So we'll be right back after this break. Thank you very much. Hello, my friends. Jack Descartes here once again. Thank you for watching this video. We appreciate it. I just would like to take a few moments of your time. Right now, we are currently raising money to host a website. We have Venmo, Cash App, PayPal, as well as a Patreon in case you'd like to donate once or you'd like to give a continued donation. The donation on the Patreon is only $3 a month. Cash App, Venmo, and PayPal, you can donate however much you want. There is no obligation. I will continue to try to provide as much content for free as possible. Once the website is up, we will use that as a hub for all Sentinel Circle related activities, including local meetups, as well as online meetups, online discussions, and videos. So again, if you could go and donate to either Cash App, Venmo, PayPal, or Patreon, all the links are in the description. We appreciate everything you have done for us. And if you can't donate, we still ask that you like, subscribe, and share. All these activities do help even in the most insignificant ways. If you do donate, you will be immortalized in our videos and the website. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. Now back to our scheduled program. Thank you for coming back. I appreciate it. We're going to go ahead and start with your comments. So the first comment that we have today is from Blanquiote. Okay. Most guys don't get anything quickly on the apps, and even if they get dates, they usually aren't satisfied in the physical or emotional sense. And this was about the whole dating app video that I did, and again, I agree. It's dating apps. I compared them to the old catalogs. Another way that you can compare them is like fast food, you know, like you see the photo and like, you know, it looks so nice and satisfying and stuff, but when you actually get it, it's gross and you eat it and you don't feel really good afterwards. And I'm not saying that like women out there are like that, but it's more like you're missing out. And the whole point of a relationship is to find connection, find a significant other, and it's getting harder and harder when people online are just looking for physical intercourse, basically. You know, I mean, we constantly hear the trope about how women are not satisfied in bed, you know, whereas the male is just kind of laying there going, you know, he obviously he enjoyed it. Well, it doesn't really take much to for women and men to get to that same point. It's different, you know. So I understand where it's getting at, and I think that that's probably one of the biggest things. Like, it just seems like dating apps were meant to do one thing and one thing only, and that was to get men to find or set up well, it was obvious. Let me put it this way. It was obvious that they were actually set up to exploit men. But if you took that out of the equation, what it was kind of meant for was for men to, cut through a lot of the stuff that it takes to find women. Right? Because I guarantee you that the people who set, like, okay, for example, take Facebook. Facebook was set up by Mark Zuckerberg in order for him to find dates, right? And I imagine that's what not Snapchat, but Tinder and all that stuff was meant to do, was to for these nerdy guys who made these apps to find dates. And obviously, the law of unintended consequences kind of took over, and it's funneling, that 80% of women up to, I wouldn't say it's 20% of men. I'd say it's closer to 5%, but whatever. Point is it's changed the dynamic, and I don't think anybody really saw those consequences, but it's too much of a moneymaker that no one's going to shut it down. So anyways, good comment. Thank you. David GKK, and I'm going to show two comments from David GKK because out of context, they kind of don't make sense. So they're both regarding a very old video, which was hustle culture. And so the first comment says, I truly couldn't disagree anymore. This really sounds like codependent, attention-seeking, feminine behavior. I initially thought he was talking about my portion of the video. So that's why I asked him, what part did he actually mean? And come to find out, he actually meant the video I was reviewing in that film. So David, I'm sorry about that. I wanted to make sure before I made that judgment, but it kind of came off that you were talking about me. But he makes a very good point here. I personally don't like hustle culture one bit. What it has done is it really destroyed the joy out of life. The whole doing something because you find joy in it doesn't exist anymore. I'm struggling to find joy in a lot of the things I'm doing. But the problem, it's multifaceted. One problem obviously is, the monetization of everything. Online, people are trying to make money online, and it's funny. I was talking with my friend, my work friend, about this. He's a Gen Xer, so it's nice to get his thoughts on things. He's almost 50 years old and he's a Gen Xer, and he was telling me about how one of his ex-girlfriends was upset that he wasn't making money online. Because you got to remember, this was kind of like the 90s, and this was just before the .com bubble. So people were making money online hand over fist, or allegedly making money hand over fist. And she was upset with him because he wasn't making money. And that's kind of the issue that I'm seeing is he was online. He did have a couple businesses. He was making okay money, but he was more online for the adventure because, internet back then is not internet now. Like internet now is basically 10 different websites. You don't really go beyond those 10 different websites, which is like Facebook, Reddit, that kind of stuff, social media. Even I was on the internet before smartphones, and when smartphones came out, I saw that it basically gave access to the internet to everybody. I realized real fast that was not going to be a good thing, because it really, in my view, it destroyed the internet. And in order to get into the internet of old, you have to go through Tor, and even that's becoming harder and harder. Like the internet's just too sanitized now. And that's kind of why I'm trying to build, one of the many reasons why I'm trying to build the website is because I want to go back to a time where it wasn't like that, because the problem is people are going to these 10 different websites and they're getting a very sanitized view. Now, granted, now that Twitter is now X, that's kind of changing. Elon's been more an advocate of free speech on X, whereas the other, the owner of Twitter, his name was Jack something. I can't remember his name, but he was a big, regulated speech advocate. So, anyways, so that was the first part of this comment, and then he said, this was the reply to the reply. He said, "Much appreciated, sir. I've only seen a few of your videos so far, but I think you have good content." David, again, thank you very much for clarifying your position. And this comment, I really appreciated it, and that's why I showed them back to back. Was he was not chastising me. He was more chastising the guy in that video, which I will agree with you. We should be able to do things because we enjoy it, not because we're trying to make money off of it. And I think the moment you try to put like a price on it, it goes from a hobby to a job. Which don't get me wrong, if you do something and you enjoy it and you're good enough to make money off of it, by all means. The way I've always treated it is the money that you earn from that hobby should go to fund the hobby. But like I said, I know that a lot of people, like for example, DoorDash, and people are spending so much of their time making money off of DoorDash, driving around and stuff, and if anything, it's costing them money because they don't ever account for fuel and vehicle maintenance. Anyways, point is I think that we need to really rethink those things. So, this was our first comment, on, Rumble that was not a scam comment. For some reason, on Rumble, I get a lot of Indian subcontinent people messaging me, trying to promote my videos, trying to do like SEO, and I don't know why. It's always, every single video I get those accounts coming, liking my videos and saying, Sentinel Circle, let's give me money, contact me on WhatsApp, and I will promote your video, even though that's a whole scam. There's nothing that they can do. They're gonna steal your videos and then force you to pay ransom. So if you ever see those comments under my Rumble videos, that's what they are. And I don't acknowledge them. I'm not deleting them. I've made a choice on the channel not to delete any comments that appear unless they are grotesquely offensive. And then, of course, I will delete them. And in fact, I've made it a habit of checking, like, for example, YouTube has a place where they store the comments that have been automatically labeled as inappropriate. I check those and I actually unflag those videos so that way people can see what's posted. So I try my hardest to make sure that people's voices are heard, unless, like I said, they're really bad comments, and then of course I will. And so far that hasn't happened yet. Anyway, so I stand with Jesus. Men don't get lonely. I've never heard a man crying saying that they are lonely. I'm gonna be honest with you, stand with Jesus. Like I appreciate you commenting on my video. Unfortunately I disagree with you heavily. There are a lot of men out there who are lonely. He made another comment which I didn't grab. I probably should have grabbed, but it was talking about how men's default is anger. And I'm going to be controversial here. Anger is two things. Anger is A reaction, and B, a choice. Okay? People aren't angry. Like, that's not a default emotion. It's not an emotion. It's a reaction. You get angry at things. You get angry at situations, but you aren't angry. You may be bitter, but you aren't angry. Okay? And two is it's a choice. Well, it's always a choice. You can choose to be angry. You can choose to not be angry at the moment either. Like, for example, you stub your toe. Okay, well, you stub your toe, it hurts, you're screaming in pain, whatever. Okay. But if, let's say you got a young child in the room, and you're trying not to scare the child, you're not going to sit there and stub your toe and then start screaming. You're going to bite down, hold it, and, it's going to hurt, but you're going to deal with it. And the thing with that reaction is it does activate different parts of the brain versus, like, me interacting with you guys activates certain parts of the brain. The brain is very interesting and fickle. It does weird things. Anyways, my point was here is men do get lonely. I stand with Jesus. Okay. I understand that you're approaching it from, there's always Jesus. Jesus is with you and all that stuff. That's fine. I'm not going to sit there and say that you're wrong and your religion's wrong or anything. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that I do hear the men saying that they're lonely. I do hear that they are depressed because they are lonely. And you, sir, you need to get out there and talk with others about that. And if you are lonely, just know Sentinel Circle is always here for you. I'm always here for you. Come over. We'll hang out. I'll spend some time with you. You might find other people who are willing to spend time with you. You don't need the companionship of a woman to not feel lonely. Okay? I know that, like, when people say they're lonely, well, they really mean they want a woman in their life. And I'm going to be honest with you, that's not realistic in many cases. But there are ways to have companionship without a woman in your life. And if you feel that you need a woman in your life and it's not complete without having a woman in your life, well, God bless you. But I disagree. I think that was the last. Yeah, that was the last comment. So we're gonna go to final thoughts on this situation here. This kind of harkens back to some of the other. Oh, I didn't mean to hit my mic here. This harkens back to some of the other things that I've noticed. I've more noticed this now since I started doing this video, or not this video, but this channel, because it's forcing me to read articles that I normally would not seek out, and that's probably that's been my hope with this channel as kind of more of a recent goal versus my initial intended goal. I'm trying to bring you guys articles that are different. They're unique, but they still impact us in some way. And women who have relationships with boys and young men is I don't want to say it's a taboo topic. It's more, people don't understand it. And it bothers me that people don't understand it. I really wish people would understand it, because quite frankly, it sickens me that it's denigrated, honestly. I honestly think that it should be talked about more, and it should be treated as a more serious situation. And again, it goes back to my whole, women want equal rights. Well, what's more equal than equal punishment, right? If you touch a child, doesn't matter what gender the child is, doesn't matter the gender of the offender. The person who offends should go to prison. They should. I mean, what's the, there was an article where the teacher had a child with the child in question, the student in question, and the court made the student, who's the victim of a crime, pay alimony and child support to the teacher. Emmanuel Macron is famous for marrying his teacher. Like, you've seen the chivalry that she is. She's like, almost twice her age. And the fact is it goes into the whole, which we won't touch too much on here. It goes into the whole MAP movement, minor attracted persons movement. I really think that they're trying to normalize it to avoid the reaction, but I think that it's horrifying naturally. There's a reason for it, like that gross reaction that you have to it. I think that's like nature, and when like the whole MAP movement, they're trying to suppress our natural reaction to it. And I don't understand what it is about these movements. They're trying to suppress human nature. Human nature is to repel against that. And then there's the whole like the LGBTQ movement as well. It's designed to make you repress what your natural reaction is. Because the human reaction is like, oh, you freak out over it, right? And I'm not saying that everyone's like that. You believe what you want. That's what makes humanity beautiful in a way, is the different opinions. I think humanity would be very boring if we all had the same opinion. But at the same time, you stand for those kind of things. Don't expect not to get pushback. You're going to get pushback from people who, like I said, I feel are in the right in their natural disgust, especially when it comes to child SA. Either way, I will say that I've noticed this rise. And again, I don't know if it's because it's being found out more, technology's helping with that. I don't know. But it needs to be talked about, for one. And it needs to be called out for as well. Women should not be allowed to cry their way out of that situation. I'm very upset with the judge in this situation. He should have, at the very least, sent her upstate for a year. At the very least. She needed to be taught a lesson. She was not taught a lesson. Like, she's still got a job. And I find it funny that she's working at a car dealership. That kind of really reinforces people's views on used car salesmen. Probably. The husband, I'm shocked she's still married. The husband should have divorced her because she cheated not once, but 3 times. And I know that he's probably doing it because he loves her and he loves the family. Which, if that's what he wants to do, fine. I'm not going to sit there and tell him how to live. I think the man's stupid. If I was married and my wife had relations with children, and I'll continue, but there's a question that just popped in my mind. If she's having relationships with her students, like, he's kind of endorsing that in a way. He has no spine, is what I'm getting at. And here's the other thing too. What happened to the kids? She has 4 kids. Where are those kids? Because, she's an offender. She's on the offender registry. Did she, like, is she supposed to not be around kids? Or where's the children in this scenario? Because typically speaking, a person like this, if they're on the offender registry, they're not supposed to be around children. And I think in a situation where like they have children, I think they're removed from the house. If I could be mistaken on that. So the story makes no mention of the kids, other than the fact that she has 4 of them. So I'm again, if this was a man, he would have been divorced. He would have been banned from having contact even with his own children. He'd be upstate for several years. But because this is a woman, she got really a light slap on the wrist. It's aggravating, my friends. It really is aggravating. I really think that this woman should have been punished. What she did was heinous and wrong. Anyways, we're going to finish up here. I would like to talk about this in the future because there was one part of the article that was mentioned, which was she had like zero self-esteem. And again, she tried to blame her husband on doing this, which again, the husband has no spine if he's still around her. But we need to discuss how because this is the first time I've seen this where women in this situation will try to blame the husband for doing what she did. Like a good example is the woman cop who had the train ran on her by the other officers in the department, and she was blaming. I think she blamed her husband for that, or it was she blamed something. It was either society or her husband for doing that, and she wasn't that attractive either, and she had like 4 or 5 guys with her at the same. And she's still married to the same guy. So again, men, you need to like if your wife is cheating on you, it's obvious she doesn't love you. So divorce her, okay? No man should ever be with a cheater, ever. And if you are, you have no respect for yourself. Stop it. All right. Well, we're going to end here. Again, thank you very much for being here. Thank you for those who have supported this channel from the very start. Thank you for those who leave comments. Thank you for anybody who interacts with the channel in any way. And again, like, subscribe, share the videos if they help. We're on Rumble. Please donate to build the website. We did get a couple of minor donations, couple single dollars. Every dollar helps, even if you got like a couple cents. Please help us out. Every little bit helps. We're trying to build something great here, and without you, it's not going to happen. Without me, it's not going to happen. So we're all in this together, okay? Thank you very much for being here. Have a good day. Bye.